It happened! Booster 14 moves to the pad and gets tested. Flight 7 is on its way. Ship 35 begins stacking. What is different? Work begins at the Cape, just the wrong kind? NASA announces Artemis 2's new launch date later than expected. The new NASA administrator has been announced. Can he bring the needed change? Is NASA heading into a new golden age like it did during Apollo? My name is Felix, welcome to What About It. Let's dive right in. Starship updates. Things are really heating up at Starbase as workers prepare for Starship's 7th orbital flight test. The first thing that needs to be ready is the launch pad, and it seems it is, as testing kicked off yet again on the 4th. Things started pretty simple with a quick purge of the booster quick disconnect, which was followed by a full test. Once done, SpaceX tested the Raptor quick disconnects, which are used to start the outer ring of 20 Raptor engines on launch day. These tests are the final steps of verification to show the pad is in fact ready for launch. But this is just the pad. The vehicles have seen even more work, so let's check those out. Starting with Ship 33. In the last episode, we mentioned a pair of self-propelled modular transporters rolling from the build site to Massey's and speculated that those would be to pick up the static fire test stand. We were right, that's exactly what happened. In the early morning hours of the 6th, during a scheduled road closure, the stand was picked up and rolled down Highway 4 to the production site. So that means it is finally time for us to see what Ship 33 is capable of. When the stand arrived at the production site, it was temporarily held while SpaceX finished the final prep work on the ship. Man, so quick. But Ship 33 is just the first of the Block 2 prototypes, and with Ship 34 now off the weld stand, Ship 35 is next in line. That's why we've been watching it so closely, and then we saw it. The first section of Ship 35 was rolled out of the Star Factory, allowing us to get a good look at this latest piece of hardware. Like with the previous Block 2 ships, the first section rolled out was the payload section, which was moved directly over to the high bay. So the high bay will still be used in the immediate future. Musk confirmed that if Flight 7 goes well, Ship 34 will be the first to attempt a catch. Ship 35 should be the second, and as it was still under construction after Flight 6, some of the lessons learned from that flight have likely already been implemented. This includes most notably a reduced heat shield, similar to that seen on Ship 31. This will enable the chopsticks to catch the ship without crushing delicate tiles. That wouldn't be good. The lifting points also have moved slightly, and they likely have different load points to enable the catch. Interestingly, these do still appear to be recessed into the ship, and we're still waiting to see what mechanism SpaceX will use to allow the ship to be caught by the arms. That's pretty important. A simple solution would be an adapter added to the ship as soon as stacking is done. Other than that, this is very similar to the previous payload sections of Block 2 ships we've seen. Of course, there are still likely countless changes that we aren't able to see across the whole ship as SpaceX iterates on its design. Many changes are simply too small or hidden from the outside. This wasn't the only odd piece of ship spotted at Starbase. On the 4th, we saw multiple trucks leaving the Star Factory with parts on top, including a pair of flap aero covers. Interesting. These could just be for scrapping, but that seems very unlikely given the condition these parts were in, so it is possible they could have another purpose: testing. We know that SpaceX is re-evaluating using an actively cooled heat shield. Check the latest episode for a detailed look at the topic. Locations like the flap hinges and aero covers are the most likely to receive this upgrade due to their bad habit of evaporating during re-entry. These may be sent to one of SpaceX's other facilities to validate this new heat shield before being implemented on a full-scale ship. What do you think? Could these be for heat shield testing or maybe something else? Let us know in the comments, I love reading them. So much for the ship. They can't get to orbit on their own though, so how about the boosters? Booster 14 has seen even more action than its counterpart Ship 33. On the 5th, it was lifted onto its transport stand. On the same night, when the ship's stand was moved to the build site, this booster was rolled down Highway 4 to the launch site. But before I tell you about that, we've looked into our channel metrics and there are over 2 million returning monthly viewers who have not subscribed yet. Help us improve the channel even further by double checking that you've hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our updates. While you're at it, give us a like and become a wise supporter. Why? Because you'll gain access to a massive amount of extra content. With it, you get access to daily new Starbase photo galleries, including all those we've posted so far, satellite, aerial and ground photos, more than 400 posts in the past 2 years alone, with up to 7 picture galleries per week, insights, chats with me, you name it. Thank you so much, you rock. Now back to the brand new Flight 7 booster. Our amazing photographers Sean and Jordan captured some truly incredible photos and videos as the booster rolled to the pad for its round of testing. These pictures can help show the true scale of this vehicle. Its first stage alone is 233 feet or 71 meters tall, which is roughly the equivalent of a 23-story building. Imagine standing in front of a 23-story building and looking up. That is super heavy.
There's that word again, heavy. Why are things so heavy in the future? Is there a problem with the Earth's gravitational pull?
After its short 2.5-mile trek down Highway 4 to the launch site, the booster was placed between the arms of the chopsticks and raised into the air before being placed on the launch mount. Then on the 7th, the roads were closed and the booster tanks were fully filled for the first time. We watched as this booster came to life and then a cloud of propellant emerged from it. Instead of a full static fire, SpaceX opted for just a spin prime this time. Interestingly, it appears SpaceX is having a bit of a back and forth about whether or not to do a spin prime on the booster. Booster 7 and 9 had multiple spin primes before static firing, but SpaceX decided to skip those for boosters 10 and 11, brought them back for booster 12, and then decided to skip it again on booster 13. And now they have brought it back yet again for booster 14. From what we can tell, it does appear that if a booster is trying something new or has a newer design, SpaceX will opt for a spin prime, but even that's not always the case. One possible explanation for this spin prime could be that booster 14 needed it because it will carry a Block 2 ship. Wait, what does the ship have to do with the booster? It's pretty simple. Booster 14 likely needed significant upgrades to fly with these considerably heavier ships, and Musk has confirmed that it is more advanced than 13, thus requiring a spin prime. What do you think? Why does SpaceX keep ping-ponging on the spin primes? Give us your best guesses down below. With the spin prime out of the way, all that was left now for booster 14 was the static fire. A second road closure for Starship testing was filed, this time for the 9th. So after a few extra days of waiting, the booster was filled up again to the top as we waited for the ground to shake again. Just like the boosters shake the ground at Starbase, you can shake off annoying things too. SpaceX's work is all about deleting the parts that aren't needed and rethinking those that are. This is a good recipe, not just for SpaceX, but for you as well. That is why we partnered with Incogni. Christmas is approaching fast, but you know what would be the greatest gift of all? If you could keep all those sellers from knowing literally everything there is to know about you. Enter Incogni. Imagine Incogni like having a digital team of helping elves at your side, ensuring your private data stays private. Imagine a personal Santa that tracks down data brokers, handles removal requests, and gives you the most valuable gift there is, your own identity protected from everyone else. We all know this, endless spam emails and calls right when we're trying to relax. Those friendly messages usually mean your data is under the wrong Christmas tree. Incogni takes on the task for you, contacting data brokers to remove your personal information and handling any objections that come up. It's fully automated, so while you're enjoying your Christmas shopping, Incogni is hard at work. Just create an account, grant Incogni permission, and watch as they clean up the mess. Now, don't blame me if your phone battery lasts longer. If you want to check out Incogni, use code Felix at the link below for 60% off an annual plan. Plus, there is a 30-day money-back guarantee. Protect your privacy, support What About It, and enjoy a spam-free holiday season. Click the link below and give spam calls the boot. Starbase felt the rumble of 33 Raptor engines again as this booster performed its first static fire. Yes! Everything appeared to go flawlessly, with all of the ground hardware appearing to do its job and all the engines burning for the entire duration. Haha! It's not often that you can see a 23-story building do this kind of stuff. From what we can tell, this was a full duration burn. From here, the booster will be rolled back to the production site for any final prep work needed before launch. After the failed landing of Booster 13, hopefully Booster 14 will be able to make it back intact. We're rapidly closing in on Flight 7. SpaceX is moving fast, and with things constantly speeding up at Starbase, it was only a matter of time before they expanded Starship operations yet again. Things are finally picking up pace again here at the Cape, and I love it. Yet another crane has been raised here since last week, and we now know why, although it might not be the reason we were hoping for. SpaceX's first job with these cranes was not to build anything, but to tear things down. In this case, SpaceX was tearing down what is believed to be a custom liquid oxygen tank, not too dissimilar to the vertical tanks they had built at Starbase. Like the tanks there, it'll meet the same fate. Vertical tanks were a strange idea. This one in particular was very strange. It sits right between the 39A Falcon launch mount and the one intended for Starship. What were they thinking? SpaceX will likely bring in prefabricated horizontal tanks now, as they are easier to approve and frankly more reliable. This is likely still part of the prep work before they begin working on the new pad. It needs to be operational relatively soon if SpaceX wants to meet all its goals. As we've already seen, the first parts of a new OLM construction work should begin shortly. In fact, recent satellite imagery clearly shows that SpaceX's other Starship facilities at the Cape are beginning construction. Here you can see the beginning of a road that SpaceX will build to expand its facilities at the Cape ahead of full Starship development. Cape Canaveral as a whole should see much more activity in the coming years as we enter a possible golden age of space exploration. And it's not just SpaceX that's going to be there. Blue Origin is another company that has been developing reusable rockets for as long as SpaceX has. I know, while they may not have an orbital launch record to accompany that time and development, that is quickly changing. New Glenn is a true monster of a rocket. While not as big as Starship, Blue is arguably just as ambitious, considering it is going straight from this to this. Multiple tests have been completed since it rolled to the pad, including a possible wet dress rehearsal with venting spotted coming from the pad. Like Starship, New Glenn is only waiting to complete its static fire now, and if it hasn't already, it could happen any day. Yes! And if the static fire is successful, then Blue may be able to fly this month. According to Christian Davenport, a reporter for the Washington Post, they may even already have approval for this launch date. With all these new highly capable rockets coming online, it's interesting to see how NASA has utilized these new capabilities. They have long been a leader in innovation, paving the way for the space industry we enjoy today. They developed the technology to bring us to the moon and even created the first reusable rocket. In recent years, it began to feel like NASA was falling behind. They hoped to change that with the Artemis missions by returning people to the moon. However, the program has faced countless delays and cost overruns. In November 2022, SLS, the cornerstone rocket for the Artemis program, launched for the first time, sending the uncrewed Orion capsule on a test mission around the moon. This mission was successful, with the capsule splashing down just a few weeks later. It was believed that the first crewed flight of this capsule on Artemis 2 would take place around a year and a half later in 2024. However, that did not happen for several reasons. The most important of these was Orion's heat shield, which suffered a fairly substantial anomaly in which large chunks broke off during re-entry. Not good. Fortunately, this didn't endanger the capsule and it could still splash down safely. However, at the time, the engineers weren't sure why this even happened. It took the teams quite a while to determine the anomaly, after which they needed to determine what to do, as any significant changes to Artemis 2 would incur massive delays. The public was largely left in the dark about this, learning about the severity of the heat shield's condition only through an Office of Inspector General report. That was until just a few days ago, when NASA's current administrator, Bill Nelson, announced the cause.
And now we know the root cause.
So what was that? Unlike many other spacecraft that re-enter, Orion didn't just do it once. What? Instead, the capsule grazed the Earth's upper atmosphere before temporarily skipping back into space. Like a stone you would skip on the surface of the water. This was done to slow the capsule down from the insane speeds of a lunar re-entry. This also increased the possible landing locations it could reach, making recovery operations much easier. Well, that's good. However, this had some unintended consequences. Chief among them is the increased degradation of the heat shield. This was caused by the heat shield heating up during the initial skip, causing it to expand. It released gases as it heated, which was expected. However, when the capsule left the atmosphere during the maneuver, it had a chance to cool down. Trapped gases inside the shield that were released by the heat stressed it by building up pressure. Whenever it re-entered a second time, the gases expanded and cracked the already stressed heat shield, causing relatively large chunks of it to break off, similar to how freezing water would crack roads and cause potholes. There is a silver lining though, because the main cause of this anomaly is the trajectory the capsule took. The capsule for Artemis 2 will not need a full heat shield replacement, as Artemis 2 can simply skip the skip. While the heat shields for other Artemis missions will be upgraded to avoid this problem, they should still be good enough for Artemis 2, as replacing the heat shield for this Orion capsule would lead to a delay of around a year. The bottom line is that NASA wouldn't be fast enough to fix the issue, so they must avoid it for now. Awesome, so that means Artemis 2 should be launching soon then, right? Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case either, as NASA announced the new launch date for Artemis 2 will be 2030?
Artemis 2 to launch in 2030.
Okay, not really. A small hiccup in the live stream made it sound that way, but the reality isn't great either. Artemis 2 was delayed until April 2026, meaning it's still around a year and a half away. This is even though no changes will be made to the heat shield, because unfortunately there were other problems. The life support system for the Artemis 2 capsule also needed to be upgraded, pushing the date even further. If Artemis 2 can keep this date, it will have been 3.5 years between Artemis 1 and 2. See the problem? For reference, during the Apollo program, the closest mission profile to Artemis 1 was Apollo 4, an uncrewed test flight of the Apollo capsule on the first launch of a Saturn V in November 1967. 3.5 years after this flight, we had already launched 3 crewed flights into lunar orbit and successfully landed on the moon twice. If any anomalies such as this are found after Artemis 2 and a similar delay is needed, it could risk pushing Artemis 3 and the US's return to the moon until late 2029, which would be awfully close to when China plans to land there. Put simply, this shouldn't be the case. I'm sure we all understand NASA wants to be cautious, but they've been moving so slowly that their rate of progression is becoming a danger. One of the underlying problems with Orion's heat shield was that much of it dates back to Apollo, and over time some of the skills and knowledge to produce them have been lost. And this is just the heat shield on Orion. SLS has been facing issues like this for years, and they have ballooned the launch cost to over $2 billion now. It's gotten so out of hand, there are growing reports that SLS may be cancelled and Artemis may end up flying on a different rocket. But drastic changes like that are up to the leadership at NASA, and that is drastically changing too. That new administrator will have a very tough job. Who'd be willing to do it? Who can bring much needed change? Jared Isaacman likely needs very little introduction here. However, for those who may not know, he has been one of the biggest private supporters of commercial spaceflight ever. Ever as in ever in human history. He has even flown to space twice now with SpaceX, including the first all-commercial spaceflight with Inspiration 4 and the first commercial spacewalk with Polaris Dawn just a few months ago. He has 2 more flights on the way, including the first crewed flight of a Starship. And he has now been nominated as the new administrator of NASA. Yes, 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 yes! If approved, he will hopefully tackle the toughest job at NASA. His love for spaceflight and his ability to lead large operations really do speak for themselves. He even offered to personally pay for a repair mission to the rapidly aging and deteriorating Hubble Space Telescope, which NASA surprisingly turned down. Why? It's even possible that with him at the helm, the Hubble repair mission may be back on the table. Isaacman has accepted the nomination and announced he will step down as CEO of his company Shift4, which he has been running since he was 16. Conflict of interest is a tough topic, and he's willing to address it early on. He has expressed his love for NASA's science objectives numerous times and called for them to fund more science missions. The problem is that SLS is eating up most of NASA's congressional funding with little results to justify the expenses. This could be a turning point for NASA, and I'm looking forward to seeing what they can accomplish next. Hopefully, they will once again be the leaders of innovation and continue to pave the way for others to follow. No matter what though, our future in space looks bright. Best of luck, Rook, you got this. That's it for today. Remember to smash that like button, subscribe for more. This is what fuels the algorithm, and this is how you can help us for free. Check out our epic shirts in your favorite Space Nerd store. A new Raptor design and our epic brand new Flight 6 design with a banana for scale are both up. The perfect Christmas gift. Link is in the description and in the card you should see now. Also check out our print store at shop.whataboutit.space to buy a picture for your favorite wall. A significant amount of every purchase goes directly to our photographers. And if you want to train your space IQ even further, watch this video next to continue your journey. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next episode. And raised into the raised at the back of the my German tongue. Ha! Hingens, the flap hingens. We do send people to the moon.